What's the major disadvantage of this arrangement? Not as much what? Yeah, not as much photosynthetic cells, okay, compared to all the palisades that are packed in there and the spongy. But even though it's less efficient as far as cells, if it's really hot and dry and the stomates have to be closed, it's going to be more efficient than a C3. So hopefully we don't have to spend time on that. We know the structure. Okay. Oh, so sorry that I didn't animate this. But anyway, basically, now this is cell types. Okay? We usually don't go over so much cell types in animals because, like the human body, we have 300 different cell types. So but plants only have 3 cell types. So it sounds like I'm making this up, but I swear I'm not. So we have parenchyma, parenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Sclere or sclerids actually means heart. So parenchyma are your like normal plant cells that you think of when you think of plant cells. They have a huge central vacuole, they have a cell wall, they have chloroplast usually. So parenchyma, I have pictures for you, are your normal ones. As it says, they're usually not undergoing mitosis, and you're going to find them lots of places, all your photosynthetic cells, all your storage cells. So a lot of your ground tissue and your phloem of your vascular tissue, but not the xylem. Xylem is sclerenchyma, because what we're going to find out is it's actually the xylem that's the wood. So when you look at a tree and you see the stem and you see all the wood there, I mean, that is xylem. That's what you're looking at. And those are sclerenchyma. Okay, that's how hard and tough they are. Okay, so parenchyma are pretty much the same thing as parenchyma, except that their cell wall is like super thick. So it's going to be more supportive because you have more cell wall. I have to stop. These are, I'll show you some pictures. They're just kind of intermixed. Like even within the leaf, there's a little bit of parenchyma here and there, like some of the mesophyll cells gives it a little bit more support. And particularly in the stem, especially when the stem is first growing, a lot of the ground tissue, before you get a lot of xylem to hold it up, you end up with parenchyma, okay? And then sclerenchyma is like super, super hard because it has a double cell wall, and the second cell wall is usually like twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times as thick as the normal cell wall. So you not only have 2, but the second one is like super, super fat. Yeah.
Reason, so phloem or xylem is parenchyma?
Xylem is, sorry, parenchyma is phloem and sclerenchyma is xylem. And when you guys come back to plant transport next week, we will focus on that because we're going to do more on
Can you
xylem
just
as well.
say parenchyma, parenchyma, and sclerenchyma a few more times, please?
Fast. Parenchyma, sclerenchyma. I can't say it fast. Parenchyma, sclerenchyma. We should make some kind of rhyme with it. Okay. I'll tell you a little story just to spice this up a little bit. Well, like when you look at a shell on a nut, you know how hard that is. That's sclerenchyma. And then it varies, like a peanut shell is not that hard, right? You just crack it open with your hands. It's still sclerenchyma, but the secondary cell wall isn't super thick. Then if you get like a walnut, you have to like bang that open with a hammer, right?
Sclerenchyma?
Fiber cells, huh?
Is that sclerenchyma?
Sclerenchyma. All nut shells are sclerenchyma. Okay. Fiber cells, some plants have fiber cells and they make these like, they're sclerenchymas, they're tough, and they basically almost look like long fibers, like rope, but big. I'm not talking about like rope like proteins. We're talking about, you can see them like when you look at the plant. And so when I went out to Arizona, we took one of those Jeep tours through the desert, and they have lots of agave plants. And kind of the plant itself looks like a giant aloe, except they have lots of fiber cells. So the leaves are so like strong because of these fiber cells that if you backed into one, or like it would actually go through your leg. So they said they had a lady on the Jeep tour and she was like taking a picture of something and she was like backing up. It went all the way through to the bone. Yeah.
Wait, what was
It's
this?
possible that if you strap someone down in like a field of growing bamboo, the bamboo will actually grow through the person.
Wow. So it's probably mostly
It's sharp and
sclerenchyma.
sharp.
So the story is that during the times of the cowboys and the Native Americans, I guess we can't say cowboys and Indians anymore, but there was a big fight against the Apaches out in Arizona, and they said for every one Apache killed, there would be 10 cavalry, Caucasians killed. Because the Apaches knew how to fight in the desert better. So they would roll in the dirt and they would lay next to the agaves, and the people wouldn't see them. And then they would jump up and throw them on the agaves, and they said it would go all the way through. So and it just impale them and kill them. So it gives you an idea of like how strong the fiber cells are. So that's sclerenchyma for you.
Oh, deadly.
Yeah. The spines themselves, that's a good question. The spines themselves are the leaves, but the coating, I don't know. I would have to look at the structure. I don't know if it's just like a super thick cuticle or it actually has some sclerenchyma cells that make it really hard. We guess it probably does. So here's some pictures for you. Here's one you can see in the same section next to each other, parenchyma and sclerenchyma. Do you see the difference in how thick the cell walls are? They stain the cell walls with that like blackish stain. You can also see in this other slide with the parenchyma and the parenchyma being here, thin cell wall, and the parenchyma with the fatter cell wall. So it's going to just be more supportive. When you come over here, this is a schematic obviously, but you have two cell walls. So you have the outside cell wall and then you have the inside cell wall. You can see how much thicker the inside. These are actually real plant cells, photographs. And I forget what this was from, what plant this was from, but this is actually in the leaf. So sometimes the leaves do have some sclerenchyma in them. You can see the surrounding cells are just parenchyma. But then you have this like super fat one, that's all cell wall. So that's going to be like super hard. Okay, and here you can see like that nice double fat cell wall. So, yeah. Well, they're not reproducing. You remember, only the meristems reproduce, and then after they reproduce and kind of go like push and end up where they are, that's when they get signaled to like grow the secondary cell wall, and so they differentiate into a particular kind of cell. So cell signaling somehow is going to control all that. Okay, so we already talked about meristems, which is the part that can divide and grow. But there are two kinds of meristems. Ones that make the plant grow in height and ones that make it grow in width. You need a meristem for each. And we're going to talk mostly about lateral meristems. And apical means top. So the apical meristem is basically the growing part that you're going to grow in height from. And then the secondary are actually a ring between the xylem and the phloem. And we're going to look at that. So what does not have a secondary meristem? Because it can never grow in width as far as like monocots, right? Monocots don't have lateral meristems. So they're not ever going to get that, what we call secondary growth, where it gets wide and becomes wooded. Okay, this is a real picture, and I have a lot of pictures because this is kind of hard to understand. So please stop me and ask questions if you don't understand. So basically, let's just go one more time with no labels. This is what kind of tissue? Dermal tissue, okay? This